Welcome to Tech Tuesday. My name is Abbie Richie. I'm the founder and CEO of Senior Savvy, and you can find me right here talking with people who are engaged in the technology space as it relates to residents in senior living. It's a fascinating place to be, and I couldn't be happier to talk today about technology advances in hearing aids. Before we do that, first, I want to go ahead and thank today's sponsor, Fynn.io. Today's show is brought to us by Fynn. Visit Fynn.io to learn how to improve resident well-being, forecast costs, and drive NOI with Fynn's comprehensive senior living platform. Visit Fynn.io. And with that, let's go ahead and run our intro. Welcome back to Tech Tuesday. I always get a little kick out of seeing my animated version on the screen there. And I'm excited today to bring our guests on to talk about advancements in hearing aid technology. Before I bring them on, I want you to know, as the founder and CEO of Senior Savvy, I work with so many older adults, many of them, and a lot of them are struggling with hearing. And so there's been over the course of the past several years, I have encouraged them to really focus on improving their hearing so that they can remain engaged and not allow themselves to be socially isolated even more than the pandemic has created. So I'm very passionate about this topic, both on a personal level with my folks and their ability and inability to hear, as well as with the seniors that I love spending time with and helping them remain connected with family and friends. So my first guest today, as I want to bring him on, we have Gary Rosenblum from Oticon. Welcome, Gary.
Hi, Abbie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm honored that you're here with us. And then we also have Keith Lewis. Keith Lewis is also an expert in the hearing aid technology area. And we do have an audiologist who will be joining us eventually, and someone that I've consulted with from time to time on the ability to improve my students' hearing. So welcome to Tech Tuesday, everyone. I'm glad you're here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So today I want to talk about the lack of hearing first. The first thing I want to talk about is what happens when someone cannot hear well and how that impacts their family, their friends, and their life. Could you shed some light on that for us, please?
Gary, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. So I think there's a little bit of a myth about hearing care that it's not part of healthcare. And that is a huge myth that needs to be demystified and debunked as soon as possible, because hearing care is such an important part of your overall healthcare. And, it's one of your main senses, right? So of course it's important, but for older adults, it's even more important because not being able to hear, and it's not just being able to hear sounds, it's also being able to hear speech, which is also very, very important. Means not being able to engage in your everyday life. And not being able to engage in your everyday life could lead to social isolation. And it is proven that social isolation can lead to cognitive decline. You can never say that not addressing your hearing loss will lead to a cognitive decline, but there's steps in the process. And if you are finding yourself socially isolated, it is very possible that cognitive decline could occur. So we at Oticon, we have this tagline where we say hearing care is healthcare, which it really is. It's very important that you are working with a professional when it comes to addressing your hearing loss, because again, it is a healthcare issue. And by addressing your hearing loss, you are potentially avoiding the social isolation, which definitely could lead to a poorer quality of life, and ultimately, like I said, cognitive decline.
One of the things that I was involved with, I was in vision for 20 years before getting into hearing. And what I realized is if I can't see, that's my problem, right? I can't read the menu, I can't read the paper, etc. The issue with hearing is, particularly early on, it's everybody else's problem. the TV goes up. You ask people to repeat themselves. And in turn, it really can be a bit of there's a lot of stress that's ultimately created when you're not really able to hear. But the other side of the coin, to where Gary's coming from with cognitive decline, social isolation is a byproduct of that. And we all know that over the age of 70, it's conceivable that you could lose as much as 7 years of longevity tied to loneliness. So let's not forget about that.
Yeah, I think it's a very important distinction. You know, when I started working with this one client, her name is Mary, years ago, even before the pandemic, and she was just telling me she doesn't like to go to the dining room anymore. She doesn't really like to take phone calls anymore. And I asked her, I was like, why? You know? And she said, and she was telling me that she was feeling lonely, that she was feeling depressed, and she just doesn't do these things anymore because of her hearing. Yeah. And I said to her, you know, well, how old are your hearing aids? And she said, they're about 5 years. And so at that point, I was like, Mary, we got to get you into a newer pair of hearing aids so that you could start engaging again and doing the things you love, like listening to the radio and playing cards and having dinner with your friends. So I did see firsthand how vital that is. But then I also know that when you go too long without having it looked up and looked out and address, that it does become something that's hard to get back. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Yeah, definitely. You know, it's like anything else. You've got to use it, or you're going to lose it. Mm-hmm. I've hit that certain age where I literally go through an hour's worth of cognitive exercises in the morning. I want to make sure that I'm sharp when I'm older.
Just like exercise, just like physical exercise.
Yeah, mm-hmm. It's the same thing.
So, but Abbie, what I was going to say though also is there are a couple of studies that we can share with you after this discussion today. The recent Achieve study, and then there's a Lancet study, both of which are obviously studies by very reputable publications that talk more about this link. We're not, you know, I'm an industry guy. I don't want to profess to be an audiologist or a PhD, but these are very well-documented, well-developed studies done by PhDs who have clearly shown some of these challenges. So as a byproduct of this meeting today, we'll share those studies with you. So your viewers can take a look on their own.
A lot of work at Johns Hopkins, big studies.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you have a resident or a parent who you notice is, you know, their hearing has declined significantly, what are some things that you can do in order to motivate them and interest them into the potential of getting a hearing aid?
Yeah. Keith, you want me to take this one first?
Yeah, please do. That's a tough question.
Yeah. So, you know, it's interesting. It's a great question, Abbie, because no one wants a hearing aid. And you could ask any person who doesn't have a hearing aid, they tell you that they don't want it. Okay, so to answer your question, the number one thing that you can say to that person is, I don't want you to buy it. I just want you to try it. Mm-hmm. Okay, and every single audiologist and hearing instrument specialist in America will allow you to try a hearing aid without purchasing it because they're expensive. We accept that, right? But what's so interesting about hearing technology is that, and we, you know, I'm part of this organization called the Hearing Industries Association, which is a trade organization supporting manufacturers, right? But also supporting practitioners like audiologists and HIS. The issue is that the level of satisfaction in the United States, even though we have the highest prices in the world for hearing aids, is about 90%. So once the hearing aid is actually tried and used and utilized, people are reporting a 90% satisfaction rate. This is higher than Mercedes and BMW and Tesla. This is not because of my technology or Keith's technology. It's based on the service that the audiologist and the hearing instrument specialist delivers. It's the best in the world, which is why the satisfaction rate is so good. So to answer your question, just get them to try it. I don't like, honey, you have a hearing loss. It's clear. I don't want you to spend $6,000 on a pair of Oticon reels. I want you to go and I want you to try it and see how it works for you. And then you'll see that change. And then your friend who's not going to the dining room may change quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's a thing I call the river of molasses.
Yeah.
It takes 4 years to see a general practitioner from the time that you think you may have a hearing loss.
Okay.
And moreover, it takes another 3 years, or it has until recently, another 3 years before you do anything about it.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty contentious process. I think it comes down to just recognizing you have a hearing loss. I have one. I've had it since 1992. I wear hearing aids. I can process sound better. I can participate in conversations. And frankly, the notion of stigma, I mean, it's somewhat ridiculous. You can't tell that I'm wearing a hearing aid. And more importantly, everybody around me usually has something in their ear. So I think that we've kind of found ourselves in a mainstream situation. And so I think a lot of the old stereotypes, obstacles, et cetera, I think it's time to push them off to the side.
100%. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. In the case of my client, Mary, we did go to the audiologist, and the audiologist let her try and test drive the pair, and she loved them. And so, I think that that's huge, but I want to ask you something. So I know that you can go someplace and you can get them over the counter if you want to. You can also get them at Costco, for instance. What differentiates a Costco audiologist from, a private audiologist to an over-the-counter purchase?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, let's split up the market into two sections today: traditional or RX hearing aids, which has been in the marketplace since 1943, and then a recently approved category about a year ago called OTC. So in the case of a Costco or an independent audiologist or a Miracle Ear or Belltone dispenser, they have to be licensed to ultimately dispense the technologies. So they do all have to operate at a certain level of proficiency and follow certain medical protocols. I think it comes down to the level of care and service that you want, the level of proficiencies. There's also going to be economic considerations in terms of dollars and cents. Some of the more expensive technologies will really, you can hear the difference. If it's an Oticon Real or a GN Resound Omnia, you can hear the difference on some of these higher level technologies. And as far as OTC, there's a lot going on in OTC right now. It's a burgeoning category. There are a variety of challenges in terms of really ultimately satisfying that end user need. It's going to get figured out, but there's still a lot of work ahead of us.
I want to talk about what is ahead of us and what new developments are meeting the needs of today's patients.
I'm going to take that one.
Why not?
Yeah. So there's a lot. So what's really interesting about this question, Abbie, is, I joined this industry about 7 years ago, and you think about hearing aids, you associate it with, senior people, and you think it's dodgy, slow industry, and it's not even close. It is classic med tech. Okay, we are launching new products every 6 months. Every manufacturer in this industry launches new products every 6 months to address a lot of the unmet needs that are consistently coming up. So just a couple things. First of all, hearing aids you're able to pair your hearing aids with any smartphone, and soon hearing aids will be able to be paired with any smart device without an intermediary device. So if you have a smart TV, your hearing aids maybe eventually will be able to pair directly with that TV. That's very important. All hearing aids, 90% of the market is now rechargeable. So which is very different from where it was 7 years ago when I joined. So you have this ability to consistently sort of recharge your hearing aids. Most manufacturers are offering charge on the go, sort of like your AirPods, because if you want to just get a quick 3-hour charge, you can do that. So that's on the, let's call it the peripheral side of the business. On the audiology side, there's a lot of development there, because ultimately every manufacturer wants to get to this place where we are providing natural hearing. And no one can claim that at this point. But that's the holy grail, is to get to a point where someone puts hearing aids in their ears and it sounds exactly like the outside environment would for a person with normal hearing. We can't make that claim yet, but that's a major sort of goal for us. But what we are doing, a lot of other manufacturers are doing, is focusing on this concept of speech and noise, right? Because any hearing aid off the shelf, $40 or $6,000, improves amplification, meaning it increases the sound. The microphone pulls in the sound, and the speaker amplifies that sound and shoots it out to the person's brain, right? Amplification is the simplest part of the process. But where hearing aids really differentiate themselves, especially to Keith's point of prescription versus OTC, is this ability to determine what is speech and what is noise. And speech is obviously really important. So the hearing aids today can distinguish between the two and emphasize the speech and then de-emphasize the noise. In some cases, we can actually decrease the noise between the syllables of words because the technology is that high functioning. So it's really cool stuff that's happening right now. And as a result, it decreases listening effort. It increases speech intelligibility so that the actual effort of listening, to your point from your friend who didn't want to walk into the dining room, right? The actual experience of wearing hearing aids is less painful or less burdensome and much easier. And that is really where the technology is going from my perspective.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very cool.
Gary, you mentioned that seamless pairing. The name of that, it's a new Bluetooth standard. It's called Bluetooth LE, and it's low energy, and that really helps in terms of power management. But the name of it is called Auracast, AURACAST.
Yeah.
This is going to become a really big deal. This is where we're not competitors. We're cooperatively working together to establish a standard where it is conceivable that you could walk into a general living area in a senior facility and you would be able to, through your phone, see that the TV that everybody's watching is on your phone, and you just literally click and you are now plugged in.
Awesome.
And it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be in public, so that this is going to become a very ubiquitous technology. It is literally just beginning. In the next 3 months, there'll be several manufacturers of hearing aids that will have it. I think every TV manufacturer is going to move to it because it actually reduces their cost of goods to produce these things. So this is a really, really big deal. Gary,
I'm very excited about that because it's following along the same lines as the development of Bluetooth, which is several companies coming together, sharing the technology so that it can be utilized by a wider group of people. So I'm excited to hear about that for sure. I want to take a quick minute and go ahead and thank our sponsor today, Fynn.io, for sponsoring Tech Tuesday. And let's go ahead and listen to a word from Fynn.
You can invest a lot of money and continually hire care staff, the best that you can possibly find. But if they become frustrated or if they don't have access to the right information to do their job well, they're very likely going to move on to another location. So if you can give them an environment where all the information that they need is readily available and they're rewarded for doing a good job, recognized for doing a good job, and they feel personally valued at that job, then they will stick around. They will perform better. They will build better relationships with the residents and the resident families, and you will ultimately have a better living situation.
All right, great. Thank you, Fynn. So Keith, did you want to go ahead and answer that question as well before we took a break?
Well, Gary hit what I think is a really, really important point. It's about sound quality and it's about speech and noise. That has never been anything less than the #1 issue raised by anybody that needs hearing aids.
Okay.
And so when you start to get into this world of hearables and sensors and a lot of other functions, that be able to track, the number of steps, the fundamental that you have to be able to deliver, the holy grail that Gary keeps on putting out, is being able to hear normally again. And this is an endless effort on the part of a number of manufacturers. And it's really about how do we've got a guy who just studies wind so that you block wind. And these are big issues that need a lot of time and effort to ultimately improve. It's happening. Satisfaction's going up. They sound great, but there's still a lot ahead of us.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that, about the particular gaps you see in the industry, what you wish someone would develop that you're still waiting on.
I think I mean, number one is just general awareness, Abbie, right? That to me, to answer your question about what do I wish was occurring is most people just don't realize the technology that's available to them, in a lot of cases at reasonable prices, right? Because on average, there's about 5 million hearing aids sold per year, okay, which is about 2.5 million patients, right? 2 hearing aids per person, and yet there's 40 million people in the United States with hearing loss. So there's clearly a gap there. There's probably about 10 million people walking around with hearing aids, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 10, 12 million. So there's still a big gap there. So to me, a lot of those people have mild hearing loss, but even people with mild hearing loss will benefit from hearing aids. So it's awareness among in communities. It's awareness with general practitioners. There's no requirement right now to do a hearing test in a doctor's office, which I believe there should be, because again, it's healthcare. It's not just hearing care, right? Because there's reimbursement challenges associated with that, which makes sense. But ideally, if you're treating your patient effectively, they should be treated with a mandatory hearing test, and patients should demand that. I think that's really important.
Just like when you go to the doctor and they give you a vision test, right?
100%, right? And I don't know why that really hasn't taken off, which it should be. It's a very simple. It could be a 4-minute test just to get an idea if this person has a challenge there, right? Yeah. And I also think there is whether it's a Costco or whether it is a private audiologist or hearing instrument specialist, they exist in every community. You're probably within 2 to 3 miles of someone who can address your hearing loss. I just don't think people realize that either. That they're out there, and I think that's an awareness issue that I think we want to build up.
Absolutely. I want to go ahead and bring our audiologist on. She was delayed. Dr. Clark, please join us. Hi. Hello.
Hello. Hi. Sorry about having technical difficulties there.
Welcome to my world. So technical difficulties. Yeah, exactly. And you're not alone. It happens to us all the time here at Tech Tuesday. But I want to bring you on because you are the audiologist in the room, and you can speak specifically to someone who is delaying seeing you, to someone who needs to get new hearing aids, and also what developments you're waiting on to make this a better process for everyone involved. So please go ahead and join in on the conversation.
Sure. And I don't know what you've touched on exactly. I only came in a little bit at the end there, so hopefully I'm not being redundant in any manner. I do think you're right. The industry is changing so rapidly as far as ways people can get devices. But I think a lot of times they're missing the component of professional care. And you're right, certainly even diagnostic care, I think, is kind of overlooked a lot too. Because there can be a lot of medical issues around the hearing loss that isn't even addressed if you're just going straight to the devices, right? And kind of bypassing that whole process. So I think it is important to address the medical side of hearing loss, the challenges, whether it be tinnitus or some sort of medical issue going on causing the hearing loss. And that's why it's important to have the audiologist as part of the process, for sure. As far as where I see, or what gaps do I see in the industry, some of it coming in the commoditization of the industry. So it being seen more as like buying an iPhone or buying tires, I guess, as opposed to still being a hearing device, a medical device for the treatment of hearing loss. I think the other issue that's becoming more prevalent, that at least more people know about and they're more cognizant of, no pun intended, is the connection between cognitive decline and amplification. And that's a huge connecting point for a lot of people. And that could be whether they're wearing old technology that doesn't do very well for them, or they're just not getting anything at all. The the length of time people are waiting now to get devices has dropped down. It used to be about 7 to 8 years, and it's coming in around a 5-6 year window. So people are getting help sooner than they were. They're not waiting as long, but we still have people that are on the fence. I think as the products get better and as the invisibility of the products gets better, I think more people will step into getting the help they need.
Yeah, and if people are able to try them before buying them, even in an over-the-counter basis, that may also bridge the gap for them as well.
That's an issue.
It's an issue.
Yeah, it is, because right now today, in the case of OTC was supposed to do 3 things. 1, improve access, improve price point, and align the price point so that it becomes more affordable. And the third part was about education and awareness. And right now, after almost a year, you've got a bunch of product that's on shelves. We've done some work in Hearing Industries Association called Market Track. We've asked people, how confident are you in a self-administered hearing test? And they said, we're not entirely comfortable with that. And we need help in selecting the right products. And there's no way to compare one OTC product versus another. So in turn, it's been a slow start. There's just this mass of underwhelming products. And one of the big challenges for everybody is aligning the right technology at the right price point. And that's a bit of a challenge right now, given the requirements technologically to perform well and delivering a lower price point. We're not quite there yet.
Abbie, I think just to add to what Keith's saying, while we struggled and we've decided as an organization not to get into OTC because people compared it to readers, when glasses came out, and a reader or glasses is mechanical. You have an eye issue and put something in front of your eye to address the issue. Hearing is sensory neural. Every brain is different. Every ear is different. Every person is different. So the way that you can interpret it is not by essentially taking something off the shelf and putting it in someone's ears. So and I think Keith is right. The first year of its existence has not taken the world by storm. And there's a lot of challenges with returns and retailers getting behind this, because just like any business, if it's not going to drive a profit for a retailer, they're going to walk away from it. So it's been a pretty much of a dud for the first year. I mean, the hearing industries, it's only been about 1% of the total hearing aids sold in the United States. When if you look at the FDA guidelines that were released associated with OTC, they said within 5 years it's going to take over the whole industry, and that's really not what's happening so far.
It's going to get figured out.
There's a lot of work to be done.
It will get figured out, and it is attracting a much younger audience, what we call a pre-user, and I'm talking somebody in their 40s, early 50s. But again, you've got to be able to deliver to their expectations. It's going to take a little time. I do think it's going to get figured out, and it will be a complement to traditional and RX hearing aids. It's a continuum.
Yeah,
I've been a strong proponent. I don't
think it's going to get figured out personally, but that's cool. We can agree to disagree.
I love competition, Gary. I'm looking forward to it.
I want to circle back to a comment that. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, just chipping in one other third viewpoint. I think when you talk OTC and you talk about the automation of setup and a lot of things that have to happen with an OTC that doesn't happen necessarily in a prescriptive device, I do think as a younger generation comes into hearing healthcare, I do agree with Keith in the sense that some parts could definitely be more automated between AI and a lot of other components. The problem I see that is still is an issue with OTC, even what we carry in clinic, I'm going to be honest with you, is people just don't know what they need. Yeah. I mean, they just don't know what that is. And so they come to us mainly for that answer. And a lot of times people if they want something quality. I agree. They don't want to buy something that's not great, that they're wasting $1,000, even if it's $1,000 bucks. They don't want to waste that on something that's going to sit in a drawer, because everybody knows somebody that has hearing aids that sit in a drawer. So I tell people if it's not something you're going to wear or doesn't sound good to you, don't keep it. It's just a waste of your money. You're better off to wait till you get a fully prescriptive device and something you'll be happy with. You'll be happy with the sound quality, hopefully the service we provide, the way it's fitted, because it is a lot about who's doing the fitting too.
I want to circle back to a question that one of our participants asked, and he asked about tinnitus and hearing, and what developments or what would you recommend with a hearing aid in that regard?
Well, I can chime in and
Please do.
okay. As a tinnitus provider, and I have some different certifications for tinnitus care. So here, amplification helps tremendously. It is a piece of the puzzle. It is not 100% of the puzzle. So it has to do with getting amplification to the brain. It has to do about having sound therapy and having it on a more consistent or all the time basis. So there's kind of several components to that in addition to counseling. And then of course, differential diagnosis on the front side too, because I need to find out why do you have tinnitus, or what's our best guess as to why you have tinnitus.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. In the chat, I hope we answered that for you. Are there any final words you guys want to share with our viewers right now about tech developments as it relates to hearing aids?
It's only going to get better.
Yeah.
Where we are is very good. We've got 42.5% of people with hearing loss wearing hearing aids today. That's up from 30% 10, 12 years ago. It's getting better. There's going to be some new technologies and new ways of getting dispensed. So it's about attracting more people into the hearing healthcare world.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the hearing aid industry, and the audiological infrastructure is very well developed in the United States. What that means is that there's a lot of interest to improve the technology, because we know that we have people like Dr. Clark who are experts, who can deliver technology that we're developing, right? And hence it compels us to spend a lot of money on our R&D departments, because we know that the demand will be out there. I mean, purely from a business model perspective, it's a perfect model because the demographics are in our favor, the technology is improving, and the audiological infrastructure is continuing to get better, because like you heard from Dr. Clark, she's got additional certifications, which means that there are professionals looking for new ways to treat patients effectively. So I'm very bullish on the industry, and I'm very bullish on the technology.
Great. And Dr. Clark, any final words?
Well, I agree with both of the gentlemen. I think actually manufacturers do an excellent job with product R&D and the product. I've been in the industry 30 years, even when we had analog hearing aids way back before digital. And the hearing aids have come, I mean, leaps and bounds. There's not even a comparison, really, to the quality of the products that come out. But a lot of it is getting a good differential diagnosis, having a good a good audiologist or care provider who's fitting you appropriately, fitting you well with the product, and really helping the patient through the journey. Because it truly is a journey. And I think people forget about that, especially with OTC. Because once you're wearing hearing aids, it's not like you're going to go back to not wearing hearing aids. Right. So it is a journey in healthcare, and hopefully you find a partner, a good audiologist that you take that journey with.
Wonderful. And Dr. Clark, how can people get in contact with you?
So we are in Scottsdale, Arizona. My clinic is called Platinum Hearing. If you go to platinumhearingaz.com, we would love to see any of your viewers or answer any questions. Be happy to give us a call too. Thank you.
And Keith, how about you?
K Lewis, KLEWIS at GN Resound would be the easiest way to get a hold of me, and I'll respond pretty quickly.
Wonderful. And Gary, how about you?
Yeah, I have an easy one. It's Gary at Oticon.com. And I speak to our customers and patients all the time, so I'm happy to receive any email. I definitely will get to it. So I look forward to hearing from you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for speaking on behalf of so many. And I'm thrilled to have this conversation with you. And I know that our viewers are gaining insights as well. And I want to thank those folks who are in the chat today and chiming in with your experiences. We really appreciate knowing that you're here and hearing your point of view. And for all of you who have joined us, thank you. And we will see you back here next week.